Film is a disease, Frank Capra said. When it infects your bloodstream, it takes over as the number one hormone. It plays Iago to your psyche. As with heroin, the antidote to film is more film.
Hello and welcome to my Celluloid Heart podcast. A lot of people say, well, it's a big mouthful, but hey, it means movies are in my head and in my heart. Anyway, welcome to Season 3, Episode 125. If you're new to this podcast, normally we take two movies that are deep in our head and in our heart, and we put them together over two episodes by one topic or theme with some facts to go with it. There will be spoilers. I am your host, Philip Duke. And I had said that I was going to have my cousin Chip was going to be back. And I asked him, I said, hey, would you like to be on the show? Would you like to, we're doing Cliffhanger. And he said, no, I don't think so. I said, okay. So I'm doing it by myself. So I'm sorry for anybody who was hoping Chip would be here. But he will definitely be on next week. But first of all, we had an addition to our Dr. Detroit comments. Benny the Bin Chicken wrote, love it, about Dr. Detroit on our Instagram. And so that's about it. And something else before I get to corrections from last week. It's very weird. If you listen to last week's show, I talked about how I was in a car wreck at work. And I had jostled myself around, rang my bell pretty much. And at first I was just like, man, my shoulder's sore. Right afterwards, I was like, man, my other shoulder where the seatbelt was, and then my other shoulder was swollen, and my neck was hurting. And I get home, and my wife's like, you're going to feel worse tomorrow. And of course, next day I was like, oh man, I started feeling a little dizzy, concussion type stuff. I was like, no, I'm good. I can't work. So I called off the next 2 days, went back to work on Friday. Everything was fine. Thursday, actually. Worked Thursday, worked Friday, worked Saturday, worked Sunday, because, I told them I'd give them an extra day till the end of the year. Worked those 4 days, was good. Then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. I felt weird on Monday. After either waking up or getting home, I forget which, I started feeling dizzy. I would get up, I'd be like, whoa. And I could feel that it was back in my brain, whatever, it was a thing. And, they say if it persists and continues that you should go to the hospital. Or if you start getting like clear liquid coming out of your ears, your nose, or whatever, definitely go in because you might have some bleeding or something of your brain. So yesterday, I was like, oh, I'm pretty dizzy. Monday. Well, technically it's Wednesday morning right now. I'm recording this. But Monday morning, I get home, and all of a sudden, halfway into Monday, I'm like, I'm feeling a little dizzy. Monday night, started feeling dizzy. Then we had the painters come over. I helped them with some stuff, picking up paint and all that. And then Tuesday, I was dizzy all day Tuesday. Tuesday night, had some food. Middle of the night, I start feeling better. I'm not dizzy. I'm like, awesome. Getting ready to record this. I'm folding some clothes, and all of a sudden I'm like, oof, feeling that dizziness come back on. So it's that thing where you got to rest. So I was resting. I thought everything was fine. I was moving my head around going, no, it feels good. Now I'm like, oof, might be coming back on. But I thought, hey, I'm going to record it. My wife would say, how dare you? What, your gay cast is more important? No, but I'm not feeling too bad right now. And I was already going to sit down and do it. So here we are. But anyway, I got one correction from last week. So let's get to that.
You were wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Finger guns. Wrong. Wrong. Wrong in your weenie.
All right, so the Mossad is the Israeli Secret Service. I talked about it last last week on the show, I said I was working on a Queen, it was Windsor Castle was going to be taken over by terror. Die Hard in Windsor Castle was my idea. So I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be cool. And it was like this Israeli Secret Service, and I couldn't think of their name. And the Israeli Secret Service is Mossad. So, and they're like badass. They're like way cool. But anyway, that is the only correction I have. I think I had one more. I have one in the middle of the show that I will correct. But that is all for now. So, let me get into this thing here. So let's get on with the show. So Carolco Pictures had originally signed Sylvester Stallone to appear opposite John Candy. That would be so weird. I wish Chip was here to back and forth this. Opposite John Candy in a comedy about feuding neighbors titled Bartholomew vs. Neff, which is kind of like Neighbors with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, but different. Which was going to be written and directed by John Hughes, which would be awesome. And I wonder if the script might be out there, like that'd be cool to find. When that project was dropped, Stallone became involved in 2 other Carolco projects. There's some good Carolco documentaries that you guys got to watch. Really good shit. The first one was the futuristic science fiction horror film Isobar, I-S-O-B-A-R, which was about a genetically created monster who breaks free on a high-speed runaway train. So this one I heard that they may still do. Stallone may still do this one. So that would be interesting. Between 1987, when Carolco first bought the original script by Jim Ewells for $400,000, and 1991, directors Ridley Scott and Roland Emmerich were each at different points in time attached to direct the film. We're talking about Cliffhanger now, everybody, which would have had a $90 million budget with Stallone and Kim Basinger playing the main roles. However, due to disagreements between them and Carolco and producer Joel Silver about the script changes and lack of artistic freedom, both Scott and Emmerich gave up on the project, which in the end was canceled. So that was probably back about, that was the runaway train. So, sorry. So that was that one. Want to make sure. Okay, the second Carolco project in which Stallone was involved was an action disaster thriller entitled Gale Force, described as Die Hard in a Hurricane, which Hurricane Heist, which Rennie Harlan was going to direct, in which Stallone would play an ex-Navy SEAL who has to fight against a group of modern pirates who attack a coastal town during a large catastrophic hurricane. The first version of the script for the film was written by David Chapp in 1984. This is how long it takes movies to get made like this. Like, I'm wondering if that ended up turning into Hurricane Heist after 1984. Anyway, who then wrote 6 more drafts between 87 and 89, and after his final draft received some praise, and following a bidding war between several studios for it in 1989, Carolco bought his final draft for $500,000 with a promise of an additional $200,000 if the movie were made. So this is where Carolco gets into problems. They're throwing money around like nobody's business. Same thing happened to Zoetrope. Francis Ford Coppola said he was throwing all kinds of money around, ended up losing money because he had his family working for him, had his aunts, his uncles, whatever, everybody working in the studio. And that's like this. Carolco's like, we'll give you basically $700,000 if this thing gets made. Like, that's crazy. Harlan was paid $3 million for directing the film, but because his contract also gave him full control of the project, he demanded many rewrites of the script to, amongst other things, increase the number of action sequences and make them bigger. Between 1990 and 1991, while they were working on the project, Carolco spent over, here's some more money, $4 million on all the different screenwriters and versions of the script. One of the screenwriters who worked on it Joe Esterhazy, was paid $500,000 to write his version. He rewrote it as an erotic thriller similar to his previous screenplays, so it was rejected. So this is a guy, like, you want Basic Instinct? Get Joe Esterhazy. You want Showgirls? Get Joe Esterhazy. You want, like, this cool thriller in a hurricane? Don't get Joe Esterhazy. Carolco, believing the intended $40 million budget would be too big and unable to figure out how to make special effects for the film, canceled that project 2 weeks before production was supposed to begin. Can you imagine? Everybody's lined up. You're trying to figure out how to do it. You're like, okay. And then it gets to the special effects. And then you're like, forget it. It's like, geez, like 2 weeks. Like, everybody's ready to go down there. But Harlan still kept his $3 million, and he and Stallone and everyone else involved in it then moved on to Cliffhanger, another Carolco project, which had a budget of $70 million, almost double that of Gale Force. So that's when we get...
Experience the wildest thrill ride of the year. A white-knuckle action adventure. It's the adrenaline rush of the summer. Pure high-energy excitement. Hang on for the ultimate adventure. Cliffhanger, rated R. Starts Friday, May 28th at a theater near you.
So Cliffhanger, that's right, that's what we're on to now. Cliffhanger from 1993. The plot, a botched mid-air heist results in suitcases full of cash being searched for by various groups throughout the Rocky Mountains. Stars Sylvester Stallone as Gabe Walker, John Lithgow as Eric Quaylen, Michael Rooker as Hal Tucker, Janine Turner as Jesse Deegan, Rex Lynn as Richard Travers, Paul Winfield as Walter Wright. So I always know Paul Winfield as Martin Luther King. In school, we watched Martin Luther King, like, made-for-TV movie, and I'm like, that's my Martin Luther King. Anyway, and Bruce McGill as Treasury Agent. So Bruce McGill, I knew him from MacGyver. That's where I know Bruce McGill from, and I love him. Always loved him. Every time I see him, whether he's good or bad, I like him. He's in Last Boy Scout and all that good stuff. Anyway, written by John Long. He came up with the premise. John Long's like, he's a hiker. He's something out in the wilderness. And he's like, what if a plane went down and some guys? And then he came up with the idea. Michael France did the screen story. And Michael France and Sylvester Stallone wrote the screenplay. Stallone's work changed the film significantly enough that Carolco petitioned the Writers Guild of America for him to get credit. Directed by Rennie Harlan. So this thing is Stallone, he wrote Rocky. He wrote, Rambo 2, co-wrote it with James Cameron. And he wrote some other things. So, it's like, okay, he knows how to write. But this one, I guess, changed significantly where, probably the one-liners that are in there, whatever. Anyway, like I said, directed by Rennie Harlan. We'll get to that in a minute when I read some listener opinions. During principal photography, production was shut down twice when Carolco could not afford to pay the crew. The movie went $40 million over budget. Stallone reported he had to forego $2 million of his $15 million salary as a result. So here's the thing of they're paying too much money, and now when you want to make a project, you don't have the money. Carolco, in case you don't know, Invasion USA, like all those Chuck Norris movies they make, they make all those Charles Bronson movies, like all these like kind of cheaper movies in the 80s. I think The Punisher they did those King Solomon's Mines, stuff like that. Anyway, so how did this movie come into my life? I like I said, this was 93, so I'm 22 years old. This movie's coming out. I'm like, oh my God, like, how genius. Like, yes, a plane goes down, the money's there, these guys get the money, the bad guys are hunting for the money, the good guys are keeping it from him. It's great. I love it. And I'm like, yeah. And so I was big into it, and I went and saw it, and I'm like, man. And we'll get into it when we get into it. But some of these special effects don't hold up, of course. And when Joe and I, my friend Joe Weedman, when we were watching it that first time together, and I was like, oh my God, and that girl falls, and it's like, oh shit, like your heart is in your throat because you're like, holy shit. But now you watch it and you go, oh, I can see that there's, a painting underneath her. When she's falling from the side, that's a real person. That's really cool. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's get to some listener opinions, shall we?
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I hated this movie.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
I like it!
Opinions vary.
All right, so we didn't get very many. Got 3, which is good enough. Some people don't get any. So I'm glad to have 3. I'm hoping we get more for our Christmas episode coming up next week. And then for our final episode, maybe we'll get some opinions. But anyway, Dogs and Steel, Sean Hansen, our friend, he was on my, episode Die Another Day, and been on some other things, on the Keanu Reeves episode, wrote, quote, amazing, defining movie of my developmental years, unquote. So I'm like, awesome. The Backgrams wrote, quote, love it, peril, great stunts, and John Lithgow in full mustache twirling mode. Then he put a laugh out loud emoji, a thumbs up emoji, and a 5 stars emoji. So thank you, Sean, and thank you, Backgrams. And then, our resident reviewer over there, Brant Dodson, over here, I guess, for our show, wrote, quote, Rennie Harlan has never made a good movie. Cliffhanger is no exception. This film is moronic on an epic scale. The writing, acting, effects, cinematography, editing, pacing, music, and directing are all awful. Even the British accents are bad. There's not a single redeeming quality to be found anywhere. One heart. Time is precious, and there are so many good movies out there to enjoy. So don't waste time watching this monument of garbage, unquote. So they can't all be good, which I understand. Some things that I might argue about, not argue, that I would, it's a racquetball game. It's a ping pong game. Is that Rennie Harlan directed, The Long Kiss Goodnight. I like that movie. I like the writing of it, maybe more than the directing, but I like that movie. It's not on top of my list of like best movies ever, but I like it. He did Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which I like that keeps going in a circle. We talked about it before, me and Chip, where they get in the truck and we gotta go, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh, we're in a dream. Freddy keeps putting us back at the fucking diner. So that part's cool. But and then he did, and then Die Hard 2 was one of the first videos that I ever had VHS that I bought, and it was that and Die Hard 2 and Lethal Weapon 2 were the 2 first VHSs that I had. So I watched those over and over. And I know that Die Hard 2 may not be that great, but I enjoy it. So there's that. But anyway, where was I? Oh, and so One Heart, I don't know. I mean, it's an entertaining movie. It's fun. Passenger 57, I just changed my rating on Letterboxd. I changed it to 3 hearts instead of 3.5, and I put Cliffhanger at 3.5. I was going to put Cliffhanger at 4, but I said no, 3.5. Because for one, why I picked these movies are because I remember seeing it in the theater, and it was like, if I explained it to you then, it'd be like the trailer. Fucking action-packed, like it was awesome, like, oh my God, I know that, Stallone's like, oh, look, I'm tough. And I wasn't into that, but I was into like, oh my God, that's so cool. Little things that they did that I'll get to when we discuss through the movies. But there were the little things that I liked that I still like today when I watched it today with my wife. My wife enjoyed it. Like she said, it was just fun. Movies are meant to be fun. Some are horrible and some you're just like, oh, they're boring or you got to slag through. She goes, this was entertaining. It was fun. I said, yeah. I said, I enjoyed it. And it went pretty quick, kind of the time did. But yes, there's times when they're actually filming in the wilderness. And then there's times when they're on a soundstage, and the difference is big time. You can really see it. And my wife even had that. There's an end little fight scene, like in the water, where that Tanner guy, whatever his name is following him, and he goes under the water. And my wife's like, "What is this?" And I go, "It's supposed to be down a little lower by like a lake." And then, I'm like, "But in reality, all that is styrofoam and this is fake." And she's like, "Oh, okay, now I get it." So there's that, but it's fun. But anyway, thank you everyone for the comments. Thank you, Brant. I'm just, this is what we do here. We're back and forth. We have a discussion. So thank you. I don't want to discourage you from writing anything. I did apologize to Brant. I said, "I'm sorry that I had you watch it, that you had to watch it." He said, "Apology accepted," with a smiley face. So I was good. So it's not as hateful as it sounds. Like he always says, "Don't read it with that. You read it with that monument of garbage." No, it was a monument of garbage. Like, don't waste your time. Like, this made me laugh. It was so horrible. I give it 1 star and I'm 1 heart, and I feel bad that I had to watch it. So my thing with things are like, look, you watch it, if you want to watch it, watch it. If you don't, then skip that episode and be like, "I'll watch the next one," Anyway, so let's get into this movie. Rangers Gabe Walker, and Jesse Deegan are dispatched to rescue their friend Hal Tucker and his girlfriend Sarah after Hal suffered a knee injury and stranded them on a peak in the Colorado Rockies. So doubles filled in for Stallone on most of the climbing scenes due to the actor's fear of heights. So there was a scene, so that part was funny, that he's afraid of heights. But I get it, some people are. It's like, I'm not going to be Tom Cruise and fucking walking over the edge and being like, "Look at this." And John Woo's like, on Mission Impossible 2, John Woo's like, "Get the fuck back from the edge. You're just so nonchalant with like, look at this, look at that. Like, you don't care because you're a thrill seeker. No, come back here." So anyway. But there was a part, the helicopter's coming. They cut it between the helicopter, him hanging and looking, and then the helicopter flies by, and then it's a stunt guy. And the match is pretty good. It's like a pretty cool edit. And it looks like he's hanging there, not necessarily hanging on the mountain, but hanging pretty high. And so it's like, oh, but anyway, however they did it looked pretty good. The way they did that editing when the helicopter flew in front of the camera. As they try to rescue Sarah, part of her harness breaks. Although Gabe is initially able to grab her, her gloved hand slips out and she falls to her death. So my wife was like, "Why would the whole thing come undone? Like, if just that one strap was loosening, she should still be. Is that all that's holding her on?" And I go, "Honey, look, it's just, yes, it is." But also then that buckle that gets hooked up on there, the buckle is like starting to break. But this was a scene that I said, me and Joe Weedman watching this for the first time, and we're like, and you're thinking like, this is just showing what they do. They're going to rescue these people. Everything's good. They're crossing the thing. Oh, we're having a little peril. He's going to help her. Everything's good. And then all of a sudden, boom, like she falls. And that feeling that I had was like, when you drop, like when you go on those things that take you all the way up and then they drop you and then they slow down at the bottom. That's how I felt. I was like, oh my God, my heart's in my chest. Like, my heart's in my chest. Of course your heart's in your chest. Heart's in my throat. Like, oh my God, it's so scary. And at the time it was just like, wow. But now you watch it and you go, oh wow, the side thing looks cool, her falling in slow motion. They did do a lot of slow motion and my wife was like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, he's no Sam Peckinpah. This Rennie Harlan. So there you go, Brant. I agree with that. A lot of slow motion, a lot of weird things that you didn't need in there that might have been funny. Like maybe it was Stallone that said, let's put them in a cave with a bunch of bats and that'll be kind of scary. And people see the bats and she'll freak out because she's a girl. Then, of course, at the end, we'll get to that. But anyway, so it was pretty, I remember just being like, oh my God. But I get why some people may not like this. Is this better than Passenger 57? Hell yes. Am I going to watch it a lot? No. I'm glad I did not buy it on 4K on, iTunes for $5 because I have it on Blu-ray and I watched it on Netflix, so I do not need to buy a special edition. What I did do, I bought The Thing, 1982's The Thing, on iTunes, 4K, for $8. So that's a hell of a deal. Anyway, she falls to her death. Hal blames Gabe for Sarah's death, and Gabe is overcome with guilt, taking an extended leave. 8 months later, Gabe returns to the ranger station to gather his remaining possessions and persuade Jesse to leave with him. While there, they receive a distress call from a group of stranded climbers. Hal goes to locate the climbers. Jesse is able to persuade Gabe to help out. So, what's interesting here is, first of all, that they miss all the important shit. It might get to it, but I get this synopsis from Wikipedia. I lay it out. I read through some of it. But anyway, right here is when after her falling, then 8 months later, it goes to like the Secret Service and they're loading money on a plane. And like my wife said, can't they just do a digital transfer? And she said, did they say that they're destroying that money? Like, why are they even hauling it around? And I'm like, yeah, that is true. Why do they have physical money? Why not just burn it there if that's what they're doing? But they were like, I said, I didn't hear him say burn it. I heard him say, like, it's for international business. And they're $1,000 bills, and there's $100 million. 3 big giant suitcases. And so then there's these Secret Service guys that are talking. A new guy comes on. And then when they get on the plane, then there's a whole heist, which I think it does get to because I remember I had to do the notes and I put in here. But it's very cool. Like, that part was like, oh, now we're on to where the money is, how this works, everything's locked up. Like, what's going on? You know, who's the bad guy? Who to trust? Who not to trust? So Hal goes to locate the climbers. Hal is Michael Rooker. Goes to locate the climbers, and Jesse is able to persuade Gabe to help out. Hal remains bitter towards Gabe over Sarah's death, at one point threatening to push Gabe off the ledge. And Gabe is like, go ahead. I don't give a shit. Nothing you can do would make me feel bad. I feel bad enough. When they find the climbers, they discover the distress call was a fake and are taken prisoner by a ruthless gang of international thieves led by psychotic former military intelligence operative Eric Quaylen. So here's the thing with, Brant was saying fake, horrible British accents. I think I get to it later. John Lithgow said something about his British accent. But the other people, except for that one kind of tough guy, the black guy, he doesn't speak British, but he's black. He's from New York. And then there's like this one of the gunmen toward the end that's still alive at the end, kind of a crew cut, whatever, looks like a football player type, jock type. He's actually British. So 2 of the 4 people are British, or however you want to say that. But anyway, so that was cool. But yeah, there is John Lithgow's is probably the worst when you're just like, why even? It's like Harrison Ford said once on K-19 Widowmaker. He was like, why am I even, I understand it's a Russian sub, but why do I have to speak with a Russian accent? Just make it English and just say I'm Russian, or whatever. Anyway, the surviving thieves are the brutal Kynette, sadistic Delmar, and pilot Crystal. Quaylen, along with turncoat U.S. Treasury, U.S. Treasury, Secret Service, they're all the same, Agent Richard Travers, that's his name, Travers, were able to steal 3 suitcases full of uncirculated bills valuing over $100 million from a McDonnell Douglas DC-9 on a mid-air transfer to a Lockheed Jetstar. So, Cliffhanger is in the Guinness Book, this part is cool, Guinness Book of World Records for the costliest aerial stunt ever performed. Stuntman Simon Crane, my guy from the James Bond movies, does some badass shit. I believe Simon Crane's the one that went off the, Spy Who Loved Me, went off the tower at the, up at the, Beauty Kill, all that great stuff. Anyway. Simon Crane was paid $1 million to perform the aerial transfer scene where he crossed between 2 planes at an altitude of 15,000 feet. So for any of you people out there that are, from other countries, not America, that's 4,600 meters. So that's quite high, and those are attached. I'm sure they have an emergency release, and he could release himself at any time. But that's where I was telling the wife, I go, look, that's really done. Like, that's awesome. Their escape plan backfired when a supposedly dead FBI agent shoots and damages the hydraulics, sending their plane crashing into the mountain, and they now require Gabe and Hal's help to locate the cases with the help of beacon locators. So here's what I liked. That guy that's the supposed dead FBI agent that shoots at them. I like that you think he's he's got this kind of greasy kind of look where you're like, oh, that guy, he's going to be a bad guy. And then all of a sudden, no, he's not the bad guy. And then you're like, oh, they're all three of these guys are robbing the place, or are going to rob the plane. And then Travers turns, puts a gun on the main guy, shoots the other two, they're dead. And then the pilot shoots the co-pilot, and it's like, holy shit. And so when that greasy-looking guy, or just looks like he's going to be a turncoat, is not the turncoat, and it's the bald guy, but every time I think of this movie, I think of that guy and John Lithgow. That's what I think of. So what I liked was then that guy's supposedly dead. I think I'd remember that he wasn't dead. And then he shoots at them and just unloads. And my wife's like, oh my gosh, like, doesn't just shoot at the front window of the plane that's trying to steal the shit, but he also shoots like at the open door and like all over and kills a couple guys or one guy or whatever. And you're like, yeah, one or two guys. And you're like, holy shit. My wife's like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah. At gunpoint, Hal and Gabe lead them to the first case, located upwards on a steep rock face. Gabe is tethered and forced to climb up the face to reach the case, but when Quaylen plans to have Gabe killed once he's got the case, Hal warns him not to come down before Delmar pulls him back and holds him at gunpoint. So Quaylen orders Kynette and one of the thieves orders Kynette and one of the thieves try to yank him down, prompting Gabe to sever the rope. So my wife was like, why are they tying this to his leg? That's how he's supposed to climb. Like, she thought that was part of his climbing harness. And I was like, no, they don't want him to run away when he gets up there. So they want to keep it taut, and then they can pull him down if they need to. And she's like, oh, okay, I get it now. And so then Gabe severs the rope and cuts it with his little, little cutter. His whatever, I can't think of the name, his grappling hook type thing. Quaylen orders one of the thieves to open fire on Gabe, causing an avalanche that kills one of their members. When they see the money from the first case fluttering away, Quaylen believes Gabe is dead and orders Hal to lead them onward. Gabe races ahead to find Jesse at an abandoned cabin. They recover old mountaineering gear to reach the second case before Quaylen does. So I remember liking that part too, where it's like, I know it's all in the writing, but it's like, oh, cool, they got their shit at this cabin, like this old store that isn't even open, been closed, or it's closed during the winter, and they can like bust that in, you can bust that out and be like, okay, I need a sweater, I need this, and then that Gabe, Hal and Gabe, who hate each other. Well, okay, Hal hates Gabe. Hal is Michael Rooker. And when Hal is like, don't come down, they're going to kill you. And then they're like, shut up. And you're like, cool. He's still like, I don't want a guy to die. I don't want this guy to die. I'm just kind of angry inside, So that was cool. Where am I at? They recover old mountain gear. By the time Quaylen arrives, Gabe and Jesse have emptied the case and left only a He's like, you got a pen? My wife's like, you got a pen? I'm like, yeah, they're going to leave a message. She's like, what, is he going to reset it? I go, no, he's going to write a note. Single bill with a taunting message. Want to trade? Written want to trade on it. Quaylen orders his men to split up, allowing Gabe to dispatch 2 more of Quaylen's men. Gabe attempts to call for help from Frank, their rescue helicopter pilot. The rescue on one of the mercenaries' radios, but Hal alerts him to explosives Quaylen has rigged above. So Gabe is trying to play like he might have been killed or what. He's just trying to get the radio so then he can talk to Frank. But because this seems like he's talking to him, trying to reach for the radio, and he can't get the radio. And right about then, Hal realizes, like, oh shit, they're gonna kill Frank, and that they're gonna set explosives and kill Gabe. So he's like, Gabe, look out, they're gonna. And then it's like, oh shit. So, but Hal alerts him of explosives Quaylen has rigged above them on the mountain. Gabe and Jesse escape the falling debris in time. Elsewhere, when Hal sees 2 friends, Evan and Brett, he warns them away before Quaylen orders his men to open fire. Brett is killed while Evan is wounded, though he managed to ski off the mountain and parachute to safety. He didn't really ski. I don't think this is a James Bond thing. He just ran and jumped, which was odd because I saw a GoPro thing earlier today, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. They just were running through the forest, and they just ran off the mountain and then parachuted. It's pretty cool. So then that guy gets stuck in the tree. The other guy dies. The guy that's stuck in the tree, Frank lands there first, cuts him down from the tree, scares off the wolves, and supposedly helps him. So I don't know if he was on that helicopter when later on when Frank shows up, or what, or if Frank took him all the way back. I have no idea. Anyway, night falls on the mountain, and both groups take shelter. Frank, having not heard from Gabe or the others, scouts the mountain in the helicopter. Spots Evan's parachute and is able to get him to safety while contacting the authorities. I don't know about that. Yeah, I guess. No, it was because they were talking on the radio, and that's when the FBI hears it. Anyway, when morning breaks, Gabe and Jesse beat Quaylen to the last case. Meanwhile, the mercenaries flag down Frank in the helicopter. But by the time he realizes it's a trap, it is too late, and he is fatally shot by Delmar. While hugging Frank's body, Hal discreetly grabs Frank's knife. As the mercenaries split up to look for the other case, Hal is able to use the knife to wound Delmar. Delmar was the one that was... Delmar was a fake one. So Delmar was one that was doing a British accent, but he was actually Canadian. He was born in Canada, so I was like, okay. But he did okay. Didn't do as bad as John Lithgow. Anyway, kills him with his own shotgun and escapes. Although my wife said, why are you going to get beat up so much? Like, why not just use a knife already and attack? But he had to wait till he was almost to the edge and then pulled the knife out and cut him on the leg, and then pulls him down and grabs his shotgun over his shoulder and then shoots a guy in the chest, and then the guy falls off the mountain. So it was cool, but it was also like, all right. But it was also, now look, also guys, 93. This is a 1993 action movie, one of those action thrillers. They made a lot. I talked about Shoot to Kill, which I thought was really good. There's some others, The River Wild, like, you know, there's some good little thrillers out there. And this one I would say is a good little thriller, but not the best. There's other better ones. But anyway, okay, where are we at now? Elsewhere, Hal finds Gabe, and together they kill Travers, who is now insane after finding that Gabe managed to get the last case before him. So what else is cool, in a way, that first case that he finds, they need to keep warm, so they burn the money. Him and the girl. Him and Janine Turner. Stallone and Janine Turner. And they burn all the money. So when the guys are like, where's the money? He's like, I burned it. And the guy, that black guy's like, his name's Leon, his real name. He's like, where is it? He's like, no, I burned it. I really, like, no matter what, he's going to say he burned it because he burned it. My wife's like, no, he hid it. I'm like, no, I think they actually burned that whole thing, which is funny because usually it's like, okay, I'll take you where it is. Finding Gabe managed the last case before him. So yeah, when Travers finds that there's a bunny with the little thing, he's really pissed. However, at the same time, Quaylen takes Jessie hostage when she waves down the helicopter, believing that Frank was flying it. Quaylen tells Gabe and Hal over the radio that he is holding Jessie captive on board the helicopter, demanding Gabe and Hal to surrender the money from the third case at a high elevated rendezvous point, and threatens to kill her should they refuse to cooperate. A little bit of this is where it falls apart a little bit, but also not really falls apart, but you know what I mean. I'll explain it. So part of it was my wife's like, oh, she needs their help. I go, and my wife's not one of those like, oh, where's the woman power? She's just like, so she needs them? I'm like, yeah. She's like, help. And I said things now would be like, that bitch would, look at me. She'd beat up that fucking pilot. She'd beat up John Lithgow and either throw him out of the plane or stab him in the fucking ankles or something. So I'm like, so what was funny was, so they capture her. So now all of a sudden for one, they can't just throw the money away and they're like, fuck you, it's over. And he's like, no, I have her. And then they're like, oh shit. So now they have to meet him. Now here's where it's bad, is where he's like, give me the money. John Lithgow's on the helicopter, hovering above them. Give me the money. They're like, no, give us her first. So then he goes over there. So he flies over there, lowers the cable, lowers her down. Now he's like, okay, now give me the money. Why are you going to give up your bargaining chip for that? I talked about it there was a cool part. I won't get into it because if Brant's listening, he hasn't seen No Time to Die yet. There's a cool part on No Time to Die where it's kind of like that. There's a guy who has a bargaining chip, but then he's just like, oh, you want to go there? Fine, go ahead. Fuck you, I'm done. So it's just funny that then he's like, okay, now give me the money. Like, they don't have to give you shit. But anyway, Gabe and Hal agree, and they meet at a cliffside bridge. However, Quaylen tries to challenge Gabe into throwing the case into the helicopter. But when he also threatens to kill Jessie again, Gabe orders Quaylen to free her at a safe distance, is what I was talking about, away from the cliff. Quaylen reluctantly agrees and uses a winch to lower Jessie to the ground. Only Jessie is safely down. Once Jessie is safely down, however, Gabe throws the bag of money into the helicopter rotors, shredding the money. So my wife's like, wait, what happened? Like, she was looking at her phone for a second. She looked up. She goes, what? I go, he threw the bag of money into the blades. And she's like, oh. Enraged, Quaylen attempts to use the helicopter to kill Gabe, but Gabe has used the winch cable to tether the helicopter to a steel ladder up the cliff face. Hal arrives to help and helps via shooting the helicopter down. The ladder snaps and leaves Gabe and Quaylen atop the wreckage of the helicopter hanging by the cable. So this is another one where my wife's like, you just hooked it to that ladder. Why are you running to jump onto that ladder when that ladder is going to be pulled down? And my thing was also like, why is Hal going to shoot the helicopter down when that's going to pull on the ladder and you could kill your friend, supposed friend, kill Gabe. So now when they land on top of that wreckage, now it's like, now you can totally tell, like, what's wrong with this scene? Why does this not match? Because it's a helicopter at a studio raised maybe about 10 feet or 5 feet off the ground, hanging against a fake wall, and they're fighting on top of it, and it's not even a real good fight. It's just like, oh, like, come on. Like, you could have made it better. And also with these 90s, look, I love 80s movies. I love some of these, like I said, these 90s movies. I love movies. But when you always have the stereotypical big boss battle at the end, like, try to do something different. Don't always do the big boss battle at the end. Or, and I know you might piss people off if you pulled an Indiana Jones and he just shot the fucking guy that was twirling the knives. Like, but that'd be cool. But now I think because of that, for one, that they had to keep escalating. Bigger fight, bigger fight. And now we got these John Wick movies that are great. The Matrix movies, which are great. That was great. That first Matrix and them fighting in the fucking subway tunnel. Like, yeah, fucking give me that. But, like, come on. Now you got to fight. Where are they going to fight? On top of a upside down helicopter. Well, then what's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you. The ladder snaps and leaves Gabe and Quaylen atop the wreckage. I said that helicopter hanging by the cable. Gabe fights Quaylen and manages to climb to safety as the wreckage snaps off the cable, sending Quaylen to his death. Now, here's the thing. First of all, up above where I said the wife's like, why does this guy keep kicking him? Sometimes it's that thing when they're writing it. This is where I think like Stallone might have wrote this part. The guy's like, oh, I used to play soccer. I'm a number one, scrambler, whatever he said. And he kicks him once. There's one. And then he backs up. Here's two. Here's three. And then he goes to kick him a fourth time. And that's when he cuts him, Hal cuts him and then grabs a shotgun and shoots him. And he's like, game over or whatever he says. Season over. My wife's like, what did he say? I said, he said season over. She's like, I go because they were doing the whole soccer thing. So now at the end, that's when Stallone kicks Quaylen. I forget exactly what he says, but he kicks Quaylen and says some stupid little, that's a thing. Here's what I like about Mission Impossible 4, Rogue Nation, is at the end of that, there's this crazy fight in this, car park that's moving cars all around that they really have that do these things. They're having this fight, and the bad guy has the thing open. He's getting ready to send the nuclear missile to hit the button. They're fighting. Finally, he kicks the guy off the thing, and Tom Cruise hits the button to stop the nuclear missile to blow it up in midair. He hits it, and he goes, mission accomplished. Now it cuts to him talking to the guy from Pulp Fiction, the bald black guy, talking to Ving Rhames. And he's like, and Ving Rhames is like, you said mission accomplished and you hit the thing? And he's like, yeah. He goes, oh my God, how lame. And it was funny. That's where it should be funny. If you're trying to be cool and then you're like, oh, it wasn't cool. You try to say something, if you're Jack Burton, that's why that's cool. Jack Burton's like, it's okay, I'm here. Nobody gives a shit. They're all in their own world. Anyway, so great. I love it. But anyway, Gabe reunites with Jesse and Hal as they are found by Treasury agents led by Walter Wright in a helicopter. Wright arranges to send a rescue helicopter as Gabe, Hal, and Jesse are seen sitting on top of a mountain peak, reminiscent of Gabe, Hal, and Sarah at the beginning. The end. So one of my corrections from that I said I had for the thing that I said, whatever it was, hang on, let me get some water. The correction, so one of the correction was paying Simon Crane $1 million to do that stunt. I had already done some of the research for Cliffhanger when I was doing my Cannonball Run, when I was doing notes for that. So when I was talking to Chip about $1 million about this thing, I was thinking the $1 million was for when the guy rides out on the motorcycle off the plane. And I'm like, oh, no, it was this. So that's where I made a mistake. I said that. But anyway, so there was a director's cut of this film at one point. When asked about the director's cut, Stallone explained that the director's cut was met with a lot of disapproval at the screening and received some alarmingly low scores, mainly because the stunts were absurdly overblown. For example, the average man can jump maybe 12 feet across a gorge, and the stunts had me leaping maybe 300 feet or more. So situations like that had to be pared down, and still then were fairly extreme. So you're probably better off with this cut. By the way, the second unit crew that filmed the majority of the action was extraordinary, unquote. So I like that he knows his limitations. He's not like what me and Tim were talking about with The Rock, Vin Diesel, and Jason Statham, who have in their contracts that they can't lose a fight. And he might have that, but I don't think now that he's older, but I think he understands now. There's a scene in the trailer where he jumps almost across the whole thing when the bridge is out. But I think that's probably one of the things that he was talking about, and everybody be like, what the fuck? Anyway, the film was a box office hit, grossing $255 million worldwide. So the reviews, Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus reads, quote, while it can't escape comparisons to the movies it borrows from, Cliffhanger is a tense, action-packed thriller and a showcase for the talents that made Sylvester Stallone a star, unquote. So some other things that I liked. I got some more stuff here, but there was a thing that I was saying like, oh, that was cool. I like the way they did that. Like, now I can't even think of it. Damn it. Anyway, there were cool little moments, like the way it's written, like something where you're like, oh, that's clever. Like I like that they said that. Like they can't do this, not necessarily the code on that box to read where the thing is, but different things. And I can't even think of what it was. I like that John Lithgow is a bad guy that just kills that girl and, just basically murders her. Anyway, around 1994, TriStar Pictures planned to make a sequel of the film titled The Dam, or Cliffhanger 2, The Dam, which would have Stallone's character, Gabe Walker, fighting against terrorists who took over Hoover Dam, but it never went beyond development stage. So there was actually that movie, forget what it was called, but remember he was stuck in a tunnel, but it was more of a disaster thing, and then he had to help him get out. In 2008, once again, there were plans to make this sequel, and even Stallone was interested, but it was canceled. In May 2009, it was announced that Studio Canal would be overseeing a remake of Cliffhanger. Neil H. Moritz was set to produce, with filming due to begin in 2010, but that was 11 years ago. In May 2014, Joe Gazam was set to write the script for the film. In 2015, on his official Instagram, Stallone stated he would love to make a sequel to Cliffhanger, which puts doubt on whether a reboot will actually happen. In 2019, a female-fronted Cliffhanger reboot was announced, written by Sasha Penn, to be directed by Anna Lily Amirpour and Jason Momoa, in talks to cameo. So, this girl, she did a movie called, Anyway, it had Jim Carrey in it for like a little role. He was playing like a homeless guy, but you could barely even recognize that it was him. Jason Momoa was in there before he became bigger as Jason Momoa. So she's kind of like this independent film director, so it's pretty cool. But like I said, so I give this 3.5, 3.5 hearts out of 5. And I would like that female reboot. It might be cool. I mean, if you did it in a realistic way, and like, it'd be cool. So, so there's that. So everybody, write me, whether you agree, don't agree, disagree, whatever. Let me know. So, are you ready for Phil's film favorite of the week? Sometimes it's hard to say. It's a little tongue twister. So, I watched this movie. This is what I got an honorable mention, but I watched Niagara from 1953. As two couples are visiting Niagara Falls, tensions between one wife and her husband reach the level of murder. So this was on Criterion Channel. It's got Marilyn Monroe in it, and can't even think of the other guy. Damn it. But Marilyn Monroe wants to kill her husband. She looks the most beautiful she has ever looked in any movie. Like, oh my God. And this is right as she's coming up. And, they were even saying on like some of the making of things, like she had to, the director had to tell her, like, don't stand so close. When you're taking that shower, stand a little back, because she wanted to do like real. So like she would take off her clothes to take a shower against the like glass window, and they had to tell her like, no, back up so that the camera can't see you. And she, oh, okay, so it barely makes you out. But it's just a cool little, it's a noir, but it's in color. It looks like that color just pops. It's amazing. And it's like she's mad at her husband, but she's also dating somebody. She tells him, why don't you kill my husband and then we'll run off together? He says, Okay, I'm going to go do that. When you hear these bells ring, you'll know that it's been done, and you come and meet me. And she says, okay. She hears the bells ring. She knows it's been done. She goes to the, I'm going to go ahead and tell this because this part was amazing for me. She goes to, because you want to watch it. So then the police come to her. They're like, we found your husband. She's like, okay. So she goes to the coroner's office, goes to the police station, goes down to the morgue. They're like, identify the body. They pull the sheet back, and she faints. And you're like, oh shit, like she wasn't ready for her husband to die. Was it her husband? Was it her boyfriend? Who is under the sheet? And then the whole thing goes from there, and then there's another couple that's living there. There's a girl who's like, I don't know, something fishy's going on here. Really cool, really cool. Filmed at Niagara Falls, like really neat. Anyway, I loved it. So everybody check that one out, Niagara, 1953. Honorable mention is Where the Sidewalk Ends from 1950. Detective Sergeant Mark Dixon wants to be something his old man wasn't, a guy on the right side of the law. Will Dixon's vicious nature get the better of him? So here's what's cool with this one. This was also on Criterion Channel. There's another noir. This is black and white. This cop goes to talk to a guy who got in a fight with this other guy, and then that guy ended up dead. So he wants to know from this guy that's a drunk and that gambles. He goes to his house to talk to him, and he's starting to question him, and he's got his hands on him, and he's like, what did you do? You need to tell me. Was it so-and-so that killed him? Because I know that you're working for that guy, because he really wants this bigger muckety-muck. And he kind of, and the guy tries to hit him. He hits the guy falls to the floor, and now he's dead. Come to find out later, they're like, oh, he had like a metal plate in his head, and he couldn't, if you jostled him too much, like me with my brain, you would kill him, and that's what happened. So they're like, so he's trying to cover it up, and everybody else is like, oh, I bet that guy killed him, and he's like, yeah, I bet so. All the while, he fucking did it, and I'm like, I had never seen that in a noir. Like, usually it's like, figure out this. Now it's like, cover up that, but also try to get this big guy. Oh, so awesome. Anyway, I loved it. So now, come back on December 22nd for...
Hi, I'm Danny Glover. And I'm Mel Gibson. Well, that's not important right now, but I want you to go and see my new hit movie, Lethal Weapon. I love this job, and everybody likes me in it. You know, I do a pretty good job. Oh, well, he's in it.
Raj, meet your new partner.
Yes, danger, excitement.
Yeah, bad guys.
And good guys, really good guys.
Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Lethal Weapon, rated R. Now playing at a theater near you.
That's right. From 1987, it's Lethal Weapon. That's our Christmas episode. Probably a Lethal Weapon Christmas, something like that it'll be called. Chip will be back with me, so that'll be awesome. He said he's actually available to do that. And then that's just going to be a one-off. Not going to be compared with anything because Christmas is 3 days later after we release it. So we're just doing that Christmas episode. And then at the end of the year on the 29th, we're going to do a, season finale, end of the year wrap-up episode. So that'll be cool. And for next season, I got stuff planned for, the middle of January. When we're going to take 2 or 3 weeks off and then start it up. I got a new theme song, all kinds of exciting stuff. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to say thanks, everyone, for always listening. Thanks, everybody, for sending comments. Certain movies stick with you. They stay in your head and heart forever. So from all of us at My Celluloid Heart, keep watching movies. And remember, Stallone, still fun. Movies are fun, but I get it. Sometimes movies are waste. Sometimes I start getting tired, and I'm like, why am I watching this? But sometimes the completist in me goes, what if it gets better at the end? What if I turn it off and it was just starting to get good? So yeah, that's a trick. But also some of these movies, like I said, on this show is what did I remember growing up through my life? Not even growing up. There's recent movies we're going to have on the new one. We're going to have better movies. We're going to have, Chip's never seen The Wild Bunch. He's never seen The Great Escape. He's never seen, I can't think of any more right now. Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. Like all this kind of stuff. So it'll be fun. It'll be cool. But that's later on. But anyway, thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope you all had good time. And I hope that I feel better with my brain. I'm going to go lay down, take a nap, sleep for a while. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.